terrified. I feel spaces opening up inside of me. Like a building with rooms I've never explored. I think there may be something wrong with this world. Something hiding underneath.
Ah, that's too much ominous sci-fi adventure for me! Start the show!
Welcome to Cordkillers, our mission to report the intel from the front lines of the cord-cutting revolution so you can do whatever you want. You want to watch something when you want, where you want, how you want, on whatever device you want. You deserve it. You've been good. And we'll give you the information you need to know to do that. I'm Tom Merritt.
Yeah, I'm Brian Brushwood, but more importantly, we need to specify the limits of what you can and cannot do. You cannot assassinate people on Cordkillers. You can't have sex with prostitutes, and you most certainly can't shoot a bartender just because he's looking at you sideways. For that, you would need some kind of crazy sideways Wild West robot world based on a 1970s properties that was suddenly brought
I love that
back.
Will Smith movie, Wild Wild West. Are we making that?
Wild Wild West. Let's just back up.
Wait, hold-
No,
did I
this
get it
is
wrong?
this is Westworld based on the Crichton property. It's going to be on
the good one.
There you go.
Oh,
Boom, boom,
got
boom, boom, boom. No Yul Brenner in this one.
That's too bad.
Dude, I'm so excited. I knew that in theory, Westworld should be a lot of fun, but seeing this little tease of execution has me super stoked. I would totally believe that we have another Game of Thrones level, incredible, deep, I don't know. I haven't been this excited about a sci-fi property since Battlestar Galactica, I bet.
Yeah, it looks pretty amazing. And Anthony Hopkins is in it. I'm
Yep.
so glad he didn't really retire because I don't know. Everybody's in it. We'll talk about it a little later.
Sure.
But let's start off because sure, we know we're excited about Westworld and hot things to watch, but we know you're excited about FCC policy changes. So let's get to our primary target.
Give me an F.
F.
Give me a C.
C.
Give me another C.
I just gave you one.
Okay, well, I can't use it twice. You have to give it twice. All right,
here's
talk to
another
me about the
step.
FCC.
Crap. So we've been talking about this a while, and we'll explain why we think this is worth talking about a little more. Cable industry representatives met with FCC staff on June 15th to talk about this whole proposal to allow third parties to make cable boxes. The FCC wants to make it the law that says, look, if you want to benefit from the government regulations of MPVDs that help you become a cable company, then you have to open up and let anybody make a box for your system. And the NCTAA CEO, Michael Powell, representatives from Comcast, AT&T, DirecTV, sat down and said, and a bunch of other people too, we are willing to comply with the requirement to deploy applications for third-party set-top boxes using open standards. So kind of what Time Warner does for Roku. They're like, we'll just do that all the time everywhere. We'll make them on open standards. We'll make them on HTML5. It would apply to large operators, so people with 1 million subs or more. So the small guys could still get into the game without having to spend a lot of money to make apps. Once you get 1 million subs, make it for Roku, make it in HTML5 so it can be deployed everywhere. Would include all the live and on-demand programming. The only thing they're hedging about is saying, well, we wouldn't allow recording in these things. We just have the on-demand. And the people who are for the FCC's regulations say, yeah, but we want competition on the interface. And the cable companies are saying, we want to control the interface because we can sell ads into that, and that's another way we can make money. It's also unclear if these apps would be delivering service over the internet or if you'd still have to get a cable hooked up. So that's one part I'm unclear on, Brian. But essentially, cable companies coming in saying, like, fine, we'll do this, but we'll do it modern. We're not getting people to make cable boxes. What the hell is that?
Man, this is one of those weird moments where it's like, on the one hand, kudos for the FCC for saying open standards or whatever. But I remember even as we were discussing this story a few months ago, I was thinking like, oh my God, who cares about cable boxes? How backwards looking is this? It's like, congratulations. We've all established that the inch is the international unit of or standard unit or whatever.
I think it's the decimeter, but sure, go ahead.
Yeah. But the specifically, I guess in my mind, the FCC spoke and everyone had to bow to their whims. It never occurred to me until now that there was a back and forth dialogue that the cable companies could say yes to, becoming hardware agnostic, no to bothering with the hardware. That's dumb, and we don't want to do that. And we just want to, we understand the spirit of what you guys are trying to say, which means that people should be able to watch what they want when they want, whatever darn hardware they like. Also, we're big fans of Cordkillers, but we don't agree with the implementation for it. How do these discussions happen? Is this the kind of thing where it's just a war of press releases back and forth?
No, the shocking thing about this, Brian, is this is actually the way FCC regulations always work. We just never hear about it.
Yeah, okay. So talk me through this. What does this look like?
So when Tom Wheeler issued the notice for proposed rulemaking around this, the reason it has such a boring title is it's describing like, hey, I'm proposing making these rules. What do you guys think? And all the stakeholders can respond. Now, with net neutrality, very famously, they set up a website where everybody could submit their information, but they also held meetings with major stakeholders like ISPs, and this is no different. They get those major stakeholders like AT&T, DirecTV, Revolt TV, TV Ones, which are smaller cable networks. They sit down with the commissioners and they say, look, okay, we've got a counter proposal. What do you guys think if we have a real problem with this part of it, but what if we did it this way instead? Would that still meet your goals, but not impinge on our business as much? And the idea is that you come to a compromise that achieves whatever the FCC is trying to do, which in this case is like open up the market and make a little more competition and fix some of the problems of granting monopolies in the past, while the businesses say, yeah, okay, but if you let anybody make an interface, that's going to steal a bunch of money from us. So let us continue to make the interface. Can you give on that?
I mean, I would think as long as, to be honest, it sounds like a slam dunk for everyone, right? Is there anybody who doesn't like this proposal? I suppose there are people at the FCC
some of the consumer advocacy groups don't like it because they want super open competition. They're like, this still puts everything under the control of the cable companies. They want like totally open, like anybody can make a box and make the interface however they want.
Yeah, but I mean, on the flip side, I mean, what's a cable company anymore in a post everything's an app world? I mean, yes,
it's a multi-channel video program distributor as defined by law, but right, yeah, like in reality, like Sling's a cable company, but it isn't an MVPD.
That's correct.
PlayStation View is a cable company, but it's not an MVPD. Like, what's the difference between those?
And I don't know. And granted, yes, and understand, to anybody who has only one choice for a cable distributor in their area, or I'm sorry, a internet distributor in their area, and very likely it's a cable company, and I understand the difficulties with that. But in another world where there is over-the-air options, and on the horizon there's rumors about Google having a high bandwidth internet access for everyone, all of a sudden these are just brand names that you get over the dumb pipes of the internet, in which case, sure, everyone has to have an app, and nobody needs hardware. Nobody needs to call a cable guy and wait for between the hours of 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. For an unspecified amount of time for a service call. That would be pretty great.
Yeah, and public knowledge says that one of the problems they have is it doesn't allow home recording. So that's an area for negotiation. You don't record digital. And that may be something where we just have to say, well, in the world of digital, we may have to give up home recording in exchange for loads of competition. Because the other thing this is unclear about makes all the difference to me. It is unclear whether these would be provided over the internet. If these are provided over the internet, suddenly Sling TV and PlayStation View have an argument to say, hey, we're MVPDs too. We want to benefit from those regulations. Right. But more importantly, all of a sudden, all cable companies can compete with each other everywhere in the United States. So right now, we talked about Time Warner wanting to merge with Comcast and Time Warner now being merged with Cablevision, with Charter. And we talked about like, well, that gives them this percentage of the country. That's not just percentage of the market. That means like a literal geographical percentage where they don't overlap with other cable companies. If this went through with internet as the driving force behind it, and that's what I hope Tom Wheeler pushes for, is like, great, but you have to make these apps available over the internet to anybody. Suddenly, everybody's competing with everything. And home recording just becomes something that's like, okay, don't mandate it, but you'll have all these companies competing and somebody's going to provide something that's either home recording or the equivalent of it that I can decide to choose to support with my dollars.
Well, and the higher the availability of on-demand content, the less of a reason there is to bother to record for home use, right? I mean, we saw this with the MP3 revolution, and we're seeing it again with the video piracy. Video piracy is a less attractive thing in a world where you just, you have Netflix. It's all there all the time. And certainly, like, who trades MP3s nowadays that, Spotify gives you pretty much all the music for a low fee.
Yeah, and I think the FCC could just cut through a bunch of red tape with this and say you are no longer tied to your local municipalities and their local rules. You can compete as long as you agree to all these provisions. The providing over the internet could be a problem, though, because provisioning your service over the internet is a different technical procedure than provisioning it over the lines that you own as a cable company. Well, and that may be a deal killer. I don't know. Well,
especially given that so much of video content has previously entangling alliances, basically saying that, we guarantee that, we're going to license this video content for distribution to this area for this exact window of time or whatever. And then all of a sudden, I mean, this is why a lot of people can't get the American Netflix except through VPNing, and now they're cracking down on that.
Well, but this is all within the United States. So it would be more of a problem with you got to make sure your West Coast people don't get the East Coast feed. But Sling TV and PlayStation View deal with that. So I wonder if that wouldn't be as much of a problem here.
I certainly hope that's the case. I mean, look, if there's one takeaway from this whole thing, the headline on Cordkillers newspaper, imagine me sitting on a subway, I'll pull up Cordkillers newspaper, and the headline says, "Dialogue happening. Yay." That's pretty much all we get, right?
And that's good. And it honestly happens more often than people think.
Sure.
It even happened with net neutrality. It was just very angry dialogue rather than this more, like, all right, we're willing to give on a bunch of these points. So it'll be interesting to see where that ends up. What else is interesting to see where it ends up? Our Patreon, without which we would not be able to bring you this show right now. If you are supporting us on Patreon, thank you 1,000,000%. We're breaking math to thank you from the bottom of our hearts. If you're not supporting the show, though, you're riding for free, and we understand that sometimes you have to do that. But if you can at all afford to kick us a couple of nickels, please head to patreon.com/Cordkillers.
Yeah, dude, it absolutely makes a huge, huge difference. Even if you don't want to give very much money, at least get on that list of people that we know we can rely on to help keep us loud, live, and independent. Thank you to every single one of our almost 1,500 patrons.
Let's move on to signals intelligence. Or as some say, intelligentsia.
Some people say signals intelligence.
The New York Times has an in-depth piece by Joe Nocera, which has a lovely animated header piece. Looks like static. Really annoying if it's just sitting there in a tab on your desktop. Anyway, it's a really good piece of work by Joe Nocera about Netflix. Now, this is deep. This is long-form journalism. It goes through the history of Netflix, how Netflix works, its corporate culture, how they only want to keep stars and they pay people to quit. Focuses on how Netflix can survive in a world of competitors like Amazon and Hulu, even in the slowly adapting broadcast and cable networks that are coming after them as well. Nocera points out that Netflix has a negative cash flow right now at $1 billion, and its annual revenue is $6.8 billion. So they're losing $1 billion a year, and that's not unusual for a tech company, but way unusual for a media company. Look at Time Warner and 21st Century Fox. They're making about $28 billion a year. Hastings is confident, though. He says all TV will move to the internet and linear TV will cease to be relevant over the next 20 years like fixed line telephone. So what Nocera is doing, Brian, is he's setting up this tension between confident Netflix saying we are at the forefront of the revolution that is going to win. Linear television is going to go away just the way telephone lines did. It's just going to fade out slowly in the background. And yet they're showing that Amazon, Hulu, even the broadcast networks are being less cooperative with them and making it more expensive and more difficult for Netflix to continue to win because they're no longer just the first to the game or the only one doing it.
Yeah, this is a really fascinating article, and I actually encourage most people to read it. You said it was a New York Times article.
Yeah.
It's a big one. Some of it is stuff that we've heard before in terms of the corporate culture, where it's like if you're not there to win, if you're not there to play it and kick a lot of ass, they'd rather write you a check to go away than keep you afloat. They said we're a team, we're not a family, which I thought was really interesting. They also freely admit that they have taken advantage, and part of the reason they've won is because they moved very, very quickly. They pivoted very, very early when nobody was talking. There used to not be a thing such as on-demand streaming distribution rights until they announced that they want to buy them, and nobody knowing what that was, they're like, sure, I don't know, 50 cents a click, I guess. That sounds like money. And those are made up numbers that are not accurate that I made up.
Sure, but they were just that's what it was happening. They were just making it up.
Exactly. And so then they, people would jump on this, and then Netflix got way ahead of the competition. But now we're in a space where a lot of other players are asking about, well, how much is it for the streaming on demand distribution rights? Furthermore, during that point, Netflix again made a very, very smart move in that they pivoted into becoming a television network, basically saying like, okay, all of this taking other people's content, that's a dumb thing. It takes up too much of our time. We don't have enough control over it. We're just going to make our own awesome content. And again, that appears to be another good bet they've made. But, are we looking at a world where just Netflix always makes the right decision? Or are we looking at a world where we're waiting for their next misstep? And they've had their missteps in the past. I remember on the previous incarnation of this show, us talking about how bat crap insane it was for them to break Netflix into two different iterations of itself, essentially raise the fees of everybody who had both services with Quickster and Netflix together by 60% if you paid for both services. So they're not above making those kinds of insane mistakes. The question is this a permanent sea change that we're seeing, Tom, or is it just the kind of thing where they're on a lucky streak for the last half decade?
Well, and another thing that's fueling this in the background, I think, is the board of directors of Netflix is locked in place. Did you know that you can actually continue to serve as a director on the Netflix board of directors without getting the majority of votes when they vote for the board? And I can't begin to explain it, but they've got some sort of minority voting privilege that allows you to win even with less than 50% of the vote, much like the presidents in the United States.
So what is the practical result of that?
You've got a lot of angry shareholders who are saying, we don't want you to run your company exactly this way, certainly shareholder-wise, not necessarily the way Netflix is doing the business. And as the market gets more competitive and tighter, they're starting to shout louder, we want more influence over this company. And Reed Hastings has got an interlocking directorate, essentially, with a bunch of buddies who run other things. Now, that can be good in that they are insulating themselves from shareholder pressure that might force them to do something for a short-term gain that would be against Netflix's interest because they're playing a long game here. On the other hand, there's a little bit of insular thinking going on. Like everybody's saying, hey, Reed Hastings, you're doing a great job because they're all buddies and all friends, or not even buddies and friends, but just people who think that Reed Hastings is smart and doing a great job, and you don't have a lot of outside perspectives coming in. That said, I think that Netflix's corporate culture is the bulwark against that. The shareholder divisions that you hear are like, we need directors out here with an outside perspective. It's like, why? You got Ted Sarandos, who used to work in the video industry. He's got a way outside perspective on technology, but he's got an inside perspective. What about your employees? As long as you've got the right employees in place, you're going to win. I think Netflix's future is threatened only by execution. And I think that's the scary part for Netflix. They're no longer innovating. The mistake of Quickster was like, we need to dump this old baggage. How do we dump it? And it was a really dumb way to try to dump it. But nobody disagreed that they needed to get rid of the DVD rental thing eventually, right?
Or at least de-emphasize it.
Yeah, exactly. It was just the way they went about it was dumb. Now the question is, hey, we've got distribution worldwide. We've got a content delivery network, bar none. You never hear about Netflix having problems with streaming unless it involves an interconnection dispute, right? It's not like HBO Now. It's not like Sling TV in that respect. They've nailed everything. The big question is, can they continue to execute and stay in front of losing enough content that people don't find it useful anymore while they're building up their original content? Because I think what Reed Hastings was brilliant about, and Ted Sarandos too, is that Netflix saw, okay, we're going to start having problems licensing this content now that people have caught on that it's valuable. We need to start building our own content internally so that by the time we have real trouble getting content from third parties, we'll have enough of our own that people will want to come to Netflix just for our stuff, the way people go to HBO just to watch HBO stuff.
Yeah, and dialing back to one of the things you said early on, I think their prediction is 100% correct. In 20 years, linear television will absolutely be dead, dead, dead. They have a massive, massive first mover advantage. What they are seeing is not the opportunity to outperform other folks, although they are playing that game. Mainly they're looking to keep their leverage so they get farther and farther and farther ahead of the competition. They're saying the world is changing. We are the first stop on most people, on their list of, we're Coke. And so let's just be Coke as hell. So let's do Coke and then let's work real hard.
Amazon could Pepsi it up all they want. We're Coke.
Yes, exactly. We love Coke, they said.
we don't know what soft drinks they prefer in reality, but it's
soft
a good
drinks we're talking about. Got it.
Yeah, of course.
Got it.
I mean, do you think though? Here's what I think is a big question, Brian. Do you think Netflix needs to do something different? Do they need to get into any kind of live TV? Do they need to differentiate with some kind of new way of providing video? Or can they just continue to perfect what they have now, keep striking as many good deals? Remember, they have Disney locked up for years now. We'll talk a little later about how they struck a deal with the CW and get enough to bridge that until they have this huge back catalog where people are like, yeah, you know what? I always wanted to go back and watch House of Cards. I never got a chance. I guess I'll subscribe to Netflix and do that. Oh, while I'm here, you know what? I never got to see this Chelsea Handler show or whatever, right?
So here's the vectors that I see is, on the one hand, we have first place positioning. They're first in mind. Their branding is fantastic. Their critical catalog of originals critically are very well acclaimed. The biggest complaint about Netflix used to be 4 years ago that there was so much stuff they didn't have. Their catalog wasn't big enough. Their catalog kept changing, and the only good stuff was the Star stuff that they got from that deal. That's all fading into the background, and hearing right now that they're a little bit cash poor, they're not raking in huge bucks because they're reinvesting all of that in their back catalog. It makes me feel like they're not making any of the classic early winner mistakes. Instead, what they're doing is they're doubling down on their core competency. Like if we were talking about something different, like Facebook, we can get into all kinds of discussions about whether or not Facebook is making a smart move by sinking so much money into virtual reality and whether or not that's their core competency or whatever. But Netflix is definitely putting their money where they know it works, and they're very, very good at it. They are assuming that this content is going to be valuable for 10, 20, 30 years ahead, and they're owning it, as much of it as they possibly can, which means they have complete unrestricted access to distribute it anywhere they want. I think it's a smart play. I think they're going to come out way ahead by doubling down on this strategy, both internally and externally, as far as their corporate culture goes.
There's a couple of other things in this article I want to touch on before we move on, which is one, I love his analysis that linear television will go the way of the landline. Because that's perfect. We didn't have a landline cutting movement, right? We didn't have like suddenly everyone just up and dumped their landlines. It's been a very slow evolution. I know people that still have landlines. I know people who finally are like, you know what? I just didn't need it anymore. And I gave up mine years ago and haven't missed it. I think that's going to happen with linear television. 20 years from now, we'll still have some people who are like, no, I still pay for the cable because, I just really am used to that. I like having that plan. But the majority of people are like, I gave that up a while ago.
One other thing that's mentioned in this article is how similar the current movement is to the 70s and 80s as far as the deregulation of cable. All of a sudden, it was the Wild West. Anyone could do anything. But it makes me think in terms of just like vinyl never went away, landlines never went away. Broadcast linear television technically will never go away, but it's just going to be increasingly the place for crazy hayseeds living in the I don't know, the Adirondacks.
The Adirondacks, man, those people in their cable, they love their cable. I don't mean to stereotype. They love their cable. The other thing Hastings said is that he doesn't consider Amazon competition. He considers competition other things that take up users' time. So reading books, attending concerts, and the very
which explains their new ad campaign. Screw books, Netflix.
Stay away from paper. He says that the problem is going to be that the threats are going to be that movies and television could become like opera and novels because there are so many other forms of entertainment. Someday movies and TV shows will be historic relics, but that might not be for another 100 years.
Now I'm going to upset a bunch of people by saying this, and I encourage you guys to respond to me at cordkillers@gmail.com. I'm so okay with that. Nothing has been taken away from opera by the development of the soap opera. Nothing has been taken away from novels by the advent of telenovelas. You know, that's fine. All that means is that there's an increased diversity of things that we can enjoy, and they all mean different things. And I enjoy the times I go to the opera once or twice every decade. I enjoy the times I read a book instead of an audiobook. It's nothing wrong with more choice.
I think Hastings knows this. This is what gives me the confidence that they're wrong about Netflix. That Netflix is not going to get mired down into like, crap, we don't have the first mover advantage anymore. Amazon and Hulu and this new place are coming to eat our lunch. Is that he doesn't look at it as he's like, that's not the game I'm playing. The game I'm playing is how do we make sure people use Netflix instead of doing anything else? Enough that they're willing to pay the $8 or $9 a month that we need to charge them.
Including going to work. Maybe they could work
right?
in the Netflix mines. If we could only pay them $8 to $9 a month.
Building their careers on doing a show entirely about Netflix for the most part.
All right, that's too close to home, like, Tom.
He's moving Netflix towards the next thing, and I wonder if he knows what that is. Like, is it VR? Probably not. But like, I would not be surprised at all if Netflix comes up with some entirely crazy new service in the next 5 years that we're all like, what? Well, that has nothing to do with streaming movies and TV shows.
I don't want to dive us into a rabbit hole here, but the problem is I don't see where they have the cash to do that. If they're barely squeaking by, making what was it, like 800 or
6.8 billion.
No.
But they're losing $1 billion.
They're losing $1 billion. Yeah. So it's like exactly. Like, I don't know where that money comes from. If they're cash poor right now, which it sounds like they are, or income negative, I don't see where they get the ability to invest that kind of crazy.
They're income negative at a time. I mean, they made a big deal of it in this article because it helps that argument of like, they better make the money soon. Are they going to be able to make the money? The fact is, like, they're getting $1 billion. They're losing $1 billion because they're able to go and borrow that much because everyone's like, oh yeah, you're going to turn this around. This is going to be a money-making machine.
Right.
The big problem is if suddenly that doesn't happen because they get their lunch eaten by somebody else. But should Netflix continue on the plan that everyone thinks, they'll start making the money and they'll still be able to borrow. So I would have put it as harder for them to turn into a streaming video company when they were a DVD rental company by mail than whatever that next thing might be.
Sure.
Because that was a huge technological difference.
Well, and exactly, like that was the big, and they mentioned, God, the article is so great. Like when you read
really
it,
good.
like
Well
like
done,
they're
Jonas,
saying when they were doing DVDs, they didn't know how they could possibly make the jump to streaming only.
Exactly.
But they figured it out. The distance we're talking now is so much small on an iterative level.
Yeah. So I'm curious, like, what kind of holographic petting zoo?
Whatever it is, we'll talk about it in Gear Up in the future.
There'll be a machine that'll play it. Yeah.
It's
Tableau's live TV and DVR features now work on the Apple TV, so it's time for our regular quarterly revisit to Is Tableau Worth $200? If you don't know about Tableau, it is a device. I have tried it. It connects to your antenna, and the nice thing about it is you can put it wherever you get the best reception. A lot of times people say, I don't get over-the-air reception, not because they don't, but because they would have to put the antenna in a place totally inconvenient for their television. So here, you can put that thing anywhere as long as you got a power outlet for it, connect it to the internet, and then you use your Roku, your Fire TV, and now your Apple TV to view the programming. You also have to provide your own USB hard drive to be able to store the programming for the DVR. But then there you go. You've got as many devices as you have with apps. You have access to that over-the-air television.
Okay, so the big news is that this finally puts Tableau in direct competition with services like Sling TV, right?
Well, it already was on the Roku. It just puts it on the Apple TV, which is the second most popular platform out there.
Okay, so I'm Joe Apple, and I love my Apple TV, and it's just a coincidence that my last name happens to be the name of the brand of the company.
Wow, Joe, it was like it was destined for you to be
Listen, explain to me why I should get a Tableau instead of a Sling, because with Sling, all I have to do is pay a low monthly fee, and then I totally get to watch whatever I want, some of what I want when I want on some of the devices of my choosing.
Exactly. It's that apples and oranges problem, because Tableau charges a fee for the guide.
It's Mr. Apple to you.
Sorry, Mr. Apple. Tableau charges a fee for the guide, but you get all the broadcast channels. So if you get over the air ABC, CBS, NBC, Univision, Fox, you'll get all of those. Whereas Sling TV only has ABC and Fox, and PlayStation View has all of the channels. So really, you should buy a PlayStation.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the weird part, right? Is I don't understand the benefit. I don't see...
I mean, I guess the difference is you can put it on as many devices as you want, whereas with the PlayStation, you'd have to buy another PlayStation or a Fire TV or an iPad or iPhone. It's not on all the apps.
Well, and plus there's it's what kills me, and again, I'm excited to see new players in the market, and we played with the Tableau, but it's very, very frustrating that you first have to buy the hardware, but then on top of that you would have to buy another hard drive.
It's for people who already have a hard drive, so it's already a little bit marketed towards tech people. It's like, oh yeah, I've got loads of USB hard drives sitting around. I'll go grab one and I'll plug it in, and then that'll let me try it out. And then if it turns out I need more space, I can either upgrade it or buy a new one. But a lot of people don't have that if they're just getting into this.
Yeah, and it's not entirely, it's not one of the. I still don't understand why they don't just offer a package called like the Tableau Complete or something that, spend $20 on a hard drive that comes with it and charge $30 extra on top of whatever the package is.
Yeah, you know what? I feel like at one time we heard they were going to, or they did, but I was just looking at their website, and the fact still says you need to provide the USB drive. It was Channel Master that used to not, and now they do. So
yeah, the moment I hear you need to provide, I'm all, I'm already asleep and behind the wheel headed to the bar. that's how I react.
Hopefully you have a driver that's sitting on your lap, because that sounds dangerous.
Hey man, I was watching Game of Thrones last night, and I don't want to accuse you of anything, but it occurred to me that every time I see the Bolton banner of the Flayed Man, it reminds me of a delightful novel about a time traveler from a future called Pilot X, because it definitely have you looked at the cover of your book?
Okay, I mean, do I have dogs? Yes. I've fed them more recently than 7 days, though. I promise you. No, yeah, it's a bad name for anybody with an X these days. The Boltons. I don't like it.
Yeah, a little bit.
Definitely the United Kingdom is looking at their flag like, really? That's like copyright infringement. You trademark it for something. You can't do that. But yeah, no, the thing is, if you can get past the Flayed Man illusion, I think like you might really like Pilot X. It is a book about a time traveler, and I just finished the first going through the first round revisions from the editor, so I'm really excited.
I'll tell you what, man, I think, and forgive me for saying this, and I look forward to when the book arrives, but my favorite thing is becoming part of the Inkshares ecosystem. I love the updates they're doing, because once you support this book through Inkshares, once you pledge to pre-order it, they of course are making it possible. They're making dreams come true for Tom, but it doesn't stop there. They keep hitting you up on email saying like, hey man, here's who else dreams are coming true this week. And I keep telling myself, this is not work related. I should not bother to click on this email. And yet I keep reading it over and over and over and over again. I love what Inkshares is doing, and I couldn't be happier for your success with this book, man.
Well, thanks, man. I'm really excited. It comes out March 14th. You can still pre-order it right now at inkshares.com. But Patrick Norton was asking me the other day, I don't know why. He's like, how many books have you written? And I'm like, oh crap, I don't know. And I went and counted, and it's 8.
What?
Yeah.
What?
And that doesn't count the year in tech history or the chronology of tech history.
Okay, now you got me feeling jealous, because I thought I had written more books, but now you've written all the books.
Well, I just self-published them, so you go and make them beautiful. You work a lot harder on the book than I do. But
you've written twice the books I have.
all I'm saying is if you can't wait for Pilot X to come out in March and you want to support me and get a sample of my writing, head to TomMerrittBooks.com. There's Lot Beta about a mining colony system and a kind of an Arthurian legend. There's Citadel 32 about a moon colony that was abandoned after an apocalypse on Earth. There's a story about my dogs as detectives. That's kind of a young adult novel. That, Pilot X and everything, TomMerrittBooks.com.
Hey, do you want me to? I probably shouldn't propose this live on the air, but
Yes, I will marry you.
Okay, good. We have to go someplace where bigamy is allowed, though. Bigamy and gay marriage, we'd have to work out.
Bigamy.
Bigamy. So, title of the episode. What I want to do, I want to try feeding your dog detective book to one of my kids and not let him know the background at all,
okay.
and just see how it's received.
Yeah, absolutely.
Events of a different nature. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
I'll pick it up.
I'll send you a PDF or whatever. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, well, actually, PDF. Penny does all her stuff on ebooks. Yeah, I'll do that.
Yeah. All right. Cool. I'm curious to how they react. I don't think Penny would know the names of Django and Sawyer, right?
Oh no.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Let's move on to the front lines.
Front lines.
Hulu announced a VR app. Maybe this is the next big thing for the Oculus Rift. There will be 30 original VR programs, as well as streaming of Hulu's entire 2D library in an immersive 3D environment. You can watch Live Nation concerts in there. Hulu also launched a new themed show space for fans of Sci-Fi's 12 Monkeys series. Hulu launched a VR app for the Samsung Gear VR earlier this year. So it isn't their first VR app. It's the first one for one of the bigger headsets.
Man, I'm so excited to see where this goes. I just cannot wrap my mind around how it's possible to make good narrative VR content. And I know the easy thing is to create a virtual theater, which I don't know how great that'll be. But every time I hit one of these, every time I find myself saying, I don't know how they could possibly blank, whatever they come up with tends to blow my mind and be way better than I ever dared expect.
Well, I'm going to try it out, Brian. Right now.
Wait, are you? I didn't know you had an Oculus and a Vive.
Yep.
You're by VR. I didn't
Whoa.
know that.
Just give it.
All right.
The 12 monkeys are after me. All right.
jealous.
No.
All right.
Here's the thing. I agree with you. Like, I don't know how you're supposed to tell a narrative story in VR either, but this is how you find out. You throw 30 of these things at the wall. This is Lumiere era for VR, right? You just film some ladies coming out of a factory and see what people do with it. We aren't going to have good VR experiences for another 5 years, but the way you get them is to have a bunch of people try a bunch of different things.
Meanwhile, new material was uploaded to Lonely Girl 15 for the first time since 2009. The show description says, quote, I know you've got a lot of questions. Questions deserve answers. It's the only thing that satisfies them, and I have many. Probably not the best writing on the planet, but
It's true.
Well, it is. But I love this idea. I did not realize, number one, for as famous as Lonely Girl 15 was, it took place in an era where having 100,000 subscribers was utterly groundbreaking. Do you know how many subscribers Lonely Girl 15 has right now?
No. How many does it have at the moment?
115,000 subscribers.
So it kept them.
Think about the cultural impact that had at that time and what a giant deal it was. And I know it went into some kind of weird, I don't know, cult related narrative or something. I forget what happened.
And apparently, I mean, if you don't want to be spoiled on
164. I apologize. 164.
Apparently, she dies at some point or something. And it seems like they're picking up where it left on with the kind of the like secret agent mystery feel to it.
I think it's wonderful. And I think it's a great opportunity for a reboot where it's like the backstory, as long as it's peripherally related to the original story. Imagine if the lore for whatever your new property was written 10 years ago and was genuinely part of this cultural movement on the internet. I mean, there's a lot of potential for storytelling here. Plus, also...
it just made me feel old.
Well,
I
mean...
Oh, wait. We're having YouTube reunion shows now. Like, it's been that long.
We're all old. It's fine. We're all old. It's cool.
I mean, yeah, but this is like YouTube. Like YouTube's new. My wife works there.
Oh, okay.
YouTube is the new thing.
You couldn't even drop the groundbreaking assertion that YouTube was new without disclosing that your wife works there. All right, fair enough.
The BBC put all 6 episodes of its primetime drama, The Living and the Dead, online Friday, June 17th. All 6 episodes at once, so you can binge on them 2 weeks before they premiere on broadcast at 9 p.m. June 28th. The show is a Victorian-era ghost hunter series set in Somerset in the 1890s from Life on Mars duo Ashley Farrow and Matthew Graham.
Right on. Yeah, what's amazing is this would have been a primary target story, 7 years ago on this program. But instead, it's delightful to me that it's and also this is happening.
Well, it's the first time the BBC has ever done this. Like, I get what you mean. Like, just the fact of a network putting shows online would have been huge news. I guess it could have been one of our primary target candidate stories today, except that the BBC has done a lot of this sort of thing. They've just never put an entire series. To me, this is one of those mile markers, right? This is a milepost that says, aha, here's when they finally started saying, well, let's just let people binge on the show. And if they want to watch it slowly week after week, I mean, people still watch reruns of shows long after they've finished. Why wouldn't we do it this way here too?
Yeah, that's one of those things. A cultural movement is not defined by the speed at which the head moves. It's when the tail finally crosses that finish line. That's like 4 metaphors in a row. Hey, man.
It was a chimera for.
No, and a pun. 4 metaphors and a pun. Netflix viewers with the compatible iPads running iOS 9.3.2 will now be able to use picture-in-picture to keep watching Netflix video while doing other things on the tablet. Other video apps like Hulu have had this feature previously. Love this stuff, man. Do you think we're headed to as messy and as muddy as it is? Are we looking at a future where iPads are just as busy as our desktops are with a bunch of open windows?
I hope so. I want the freaking tablet to work like my computer, where I'm in control of how busy it is. And I actually do adore this feature. I was watching Justified on my iPad in the car ride yesterday, and at one point, it's like we went over a bump, and I accidentally hit the home button, and I was like, crap, but it didn't stop. Right? It just went down picture in picture into the corner.
Nice.
I was like, oh, thank goodness. This is great. Thank goodness. It saved the ride.
Thank goodness. I mean, I don't know if Boyd Crowder's going to live, but thank goodness this kept playing.
Yeah. Variety reports that Netflix and the CW are close. That's why it's not up there in the bigger areas, because it's just rumors that they're close to striking a deal that would bring scripted series to Netflix less than 2 weeks after the end of the season in the U.S. So Arrow, Jane the Virgin, Flash, all of those would come 2 weeks. It would be the fastest Netflix has ever got series from a broadcaster. The deal is expected to last 5 years. In-season shows of Arrow, Flash, etc. are leaving Hulu and will only be available from CW's app and the website, as well as through VOD deals with various companies, cable companies.
Nice. I got to imagine that window is just going to get tighter and tighter, right? Like it's just...
Well, and it's a big win for Netflix when you have this huge New York Times story that's like, yeah, they can't strike deals anymore. And they're like, we just stole something from Hulu. Well, that's...
In your face, New York! All right, hey, Roku's cross-app search now has 50 services, including news from ABC, CBS, NBC, and Fox. Rook says it has a small number of news services included now, but will be adding more in... wait, it says Rook. Was that supposed to be Roku? Roku! Hold on, this just in. Rook is Roku.
This just in. Apple's autocorrect sometimes changes Roku to Rook.
Crazy. Roku says it has a small number of news services included now, but will be added more in the coming months. Is this a service that you played around with hands-on yet, Tom?
Well, I've used Roku Search before to find things. Not very often, to be honest. But I guess they're trying to lean into the election year and say, hey, people want more news stuff, so we got to add that to the index.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
All right, let's see what's under surveillance.
It's totally going to be
there.
Under surveillance.
A trailer for HBO's Westworld premiered yesterday. We talked about it at the beginning of the show. If you don't know, the series is a remake of the 1973 movie, and the HBO series will star Anthony Hopkins, Evan Rachel Wood, Tessa Thompson, Ed Harris, among many others. It is coming in October, and I can't wait.
Yeah, I'm super excited, super awesome. I'm awesomistic as well.
optimistic.
Well, and you know what's funny is I was trying to isolate why I was so excited about it. This allows for all of the freedom of a Wild West adventure story, which is what we loved about Serenity. It's what we loved about Battlestar Galactica, where there kind of are no rules on the frontiers and the edges of civilization. But it also allows for existential questions, similar again to Battlestar Galactica. What does it mean, to be born of a flawed god, as these robots are, and to be used as playthings of the super wealthy? HBO is particularly good at handling these kind of questions and handling these kind of stories. So and as being a fan of the original, I'm super optimistic about this.
Yeah, no, I think it's great, and I am excited about it as well. It just looks so good. Even if I didn't already like the concept, which I did, AI and West and robots, who doesn't love that? Activision Blizzard announced Thursday it will launch Skylanders Academy on Netflix this fall. It's the first production from Activision's TV and film studios, which were introduced last year. Everybody was wondering if we'd get Warcraft stuff, but that's kind of tied up with Legendary, to be honest. They're going to keep making movies. So this is interesting, and it's going to be a kid's show.
Yeah,
about
speaking of which,
Skylander characters.
We'll talk, I assume, in spoiler in time about the unusual nature of the success of the Warcraft movie. But in the meantime, I'll tell you this much: my kids will watch it. Like, my daughter just lives. She knows two worlds. She knows Amazon Prime and she knows Netflix. And I'm talking about my 3-year-old here, and she knows which properties live on which things. She'll say, "Hey, I want to watch this so and so," and I'll go to load up Netflix, and she goes, "No, Daddy, it's Amazon Prime." And I'm like,
"Oh, see,
you
missed it." I thought she would say, "No, Daddy, there are other worlds than these."
Okay, and then she lets go and falls into the blackness. Spoiler!
Two more Amazon TV pilots are now available. The Interestings, about artistic teenagers in the 1970s, and The Last Tycoon, an adaptation of F. Scott Fitzgerald's works about Hollywood power struggles. So go watch those. And Roland Emmerich and producer Dean Devlin are working on a new Stargate film. Devlin says it won't be a sequel to the original film. It will start the story over again, and as such, it will not keep continuity with either the original film or any of the sci-fi series.
That's probably a smart decision, because at this point there's a bit too many entanglements, similar to what they did with the Star Trek universe, figuring out a way to in continuity reboot the franchise. Which, by the way, what bummer news about Chekhov dying. That was a real bummer.
What a yeah. It sounds like it was just accident.
Yes, thoughts and prayers. How about that?
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so we both watched Justified, Game of Thrones, and we'll talk about that on Spoiler in Time. I am a week behind still on Preacher. I didn't catch Sunday's episode, but we might talk about last week's episode on Preacher. I don't know. What else have you been watching, Brian?
Do you know what's funny is I don't know if it's a case where she's trying to be sweet or what, but my daughter refuses to watch Voltron without me. So I've watched 3 or 4 more episodes of Voltron, and Penny gets super excited every time. The comedic beats are adorable. I have the feeling that I would enjoy the whole series much more if I just sat down and watched it all straight through, because they're only 23-minute long episodes. Doling them out maybe once per day because schedules are so difficult makes it to where I really dig the comedic beats, but the action beats just sort of wear on with me. We got a fantastic email kind of breaking down. The voice acting is extraordinary on there, and we'll talk about that more in a bit. Watching more Daredevil as well, and I swear, man, I can not get back to the Punisher fast enough. I just want to go to sleep every time Elektra is on the screen. And Bonnie and I were talking about this last night. It's like, what is it? The storytelling isn't any worse. The characters are just as awesome. To be honest,
brunettes.
It's ninjas. They lost me in ninjas.
Yeah.
Well,
because you can't see them.
Well, okay, no, I can. They're all
so
right
silent.
there. They're half the time they're bowing to Elektra, half the time they're trying to kill Elektra. I'm just, ninjas.
All right, we'll talk more about why I like Elektra because she's cute during spoiler time.
Okay.
Meanwhile, I've been watching Archer, catching up on that. And I think I mentioned this before, but it is definitely a show for people who like Archer this season. If you didn't like Archer, this is not going to change your mind. This is not extending the Archer brand into new and unseen territories. It's Archer in LA being Archer and bringing back phrasing, and I like it. So there you go.
Yeah, admit it. That's the part you like the most, right?
And over the weekend, we were up in San Jose dog sitting for my sister-in-law while she was out of town at a wedding and visiting my wife's father. And so we had some time. We were just in their apartment. And we're like, well, let's just fire up Netflix. Let's see what's going on. And Eileen had been watching Parks and Rec. So I started just watching a bunch of Parks and Rec with her. Same thing. These are 30-minute episodes. So they're like 25 or 23 or whatever. And now I get it. I had watched the first couple episodes when it first came on the air, and it felt too much like The Office for me at that time. But once they get farther in, a couple of seasons in, it's hilarious. And almost every one of those people has gone on to do bigger and better things, which is amazing.
Well, yeah, dude. Not the least of which is Chris Pratt.
Right?
Not only is Chris Pratt's further career trajectory astonishing, but his physical transformation and metamorphosis into built heartthrob as well. It's amazing.
I follow him on Snapchat, so yeah, he's still in shape. He's doing good. All right, let's see what Bryce has been on the lookout for.
Hey guys, we got a letter in from Kevin recommending the sci-fi show Winona Earp, which is a sci-fi show. Winona Earp is a new series based on a comic book created by Bo Smith and follows the life of the great-great-granddaughter of famous lawman Wyatt Earp. After a troubled adolescence following the death of her father and the disappearance of her older sister Willa, Winona has inherited Wyatt's mystical gunslinging abilities, his famous gun, a .45 Colt pistol with a 12-inch barrel, and his curse, where all of his heirs, when they turn 26, all of the fugitives that he killed come back to life as demons in a town called Purgatory. That's right, Purgatory. So that's the story we're working with.
So
all right.
She's got to kill her grandfather's demons.
Yes. Not gonna lie. It was like I was listening, and then it sounded cumbersome and silly, and then it sounded so cumbersome and silly that it kind of got awesome. And I was like, all right, now I'm back in.
And so she teams up with her other sister, as well as a he's like a special. He's not border patrol. He's some sort of. He's
a marshal?
He's a U.S. marshal, but
Texas Ranger
with Canadian.
Raylan
It takes
Givens?
place in Canada, so
He's a Mountie.
It's some like their badge has.
He's a
Canada.
Texas Mountrel.
Mount Troll. Mountain Troll.
Oh boy, and so I watched the first episode today. It's pretty good. There's a lot of good action, good cheesy CG that you would expect from sci-fi. But like what Ken from Chicago said, it's kind of like Western Buffy or a female Supernatural, just demons and cheap.
You know what? You may have just sold me. It sounds pretty good.
So season 1, the finale for season 1, I believe is going to air this week. You can watch all the episodes on sci-fi.com and the Sci-Fi Now app, which is on tablets, and I watched it on Apple TV, so I think it's on TV boxes.
You have to log in with a cable account for that?
Yeah, you do, unfortunately.
All right.
But you can also buy the season from most stores.
Got something we should be on the lookout for? Just email us, cordkillers@gmail.com. Even if it's about the Old West, it's still justified.
You got
Time
it
for
in
some
early.
dispatches from the front.
I'm not going to forgive you. It's not okay, Tom.
You got this first one, Brian?
Yes, sir. Hi, guys, says David Pick from Fond du Lac,
That's why you said
Wisconsin. He says, I got hooked on OJ, Made in America, that aired episode 1 on ABC, so I signed up for Sling TV's 7-day trial to watch the last 4 episodes. Sling TV is not perfect, but as I'm single and their on-demand schedule is ad-free, I added simply shut up and take my money. Now I can legally watch Preacher. David Pick from Fond du Lac, Wisconsin. Yeah, dude, that's exactly how I watch Preacher. It's kind of become I can't be bothered to figure out when stuff is available versus not available. All I know is that right after watching Game of Thrones, after the kids go to bed, usually we're just in time to jump over and watch Preacher live every Sunday night. So it's kind of become my regular ritual on Sling.
Our next email comes from Poodle Puncher, who says, "Hi guys, I've called this meeting because during the last episode, there was an incident where the voice of Lance was misidentified as that of Hank Venture. Now, while I do commend you on correcting that statement, as your boss, it's ultimately my responsibility to provide you with the necessary tools to be effective at your job. Please review this list of the main characters and their notable appearances, paying special attention to the final two. And he lists the voices, and he's like a little personal IMDb for us for Lance, Keith, Shiro, Pidge, Allura, King Alfor, Hagar, Hunk, and we will pay special attention to the last two. Trust us, we read it. But for the sake of the audience, just the last two. Hagar, voiced by Cree Summer. While she has provided voices for practically everything in the last 30 years, Brian would best know her back in the 80s as Penny on Inspector Gadget.
Which is part of the reason we named our daughter Penelope. That was part of the story in there. And I loved the fact that Lance is played by Finn from Adventure Time. Keith is Glenn from The Walking Dead, Stephen Young. A lot of heavy hitter names in there, man.
And then Hunk, Tyler Labine, whoever it was that suggested Netflix would pick him up now that Hulu canceled Deadbeat, wasn't far off. Honestly, I was hesitant to watch this reboot, but once I heard his voice, I was in 100%.
Wait, Tyler's the main character from Deadbeat, is that right?
I guess so.
Yes.
No, it makes sense because, I could totally. Oh, well, now I'm gonna picture that in my mind. We get an email from Rodrigo saying, I've heard Tom mention that he buys movies through Vudu to be able to view them on different services. How is it that you can link your Vudu and iTunes accounts to have the content available in different places? I don't know, but I'm going to guess, Tom, that you're actually opening the Vudu app on your Apple device?
Nope.
Oh, whoa. Talk me through it.
Yeah, so here's the thing. I've explained this before, but it is kind of confusing, so I get it. Disney Movies Anywhere is the only one that works with Vudu, Google, iTunes, and Amazon. So you have to link your Disney Movies Anywhere account, which means you have to create a Disney Movies Anywhere account, with those services. Once you do that, any Disney movie, and that includes the Star Wars movies, the Marvel movies, anything that's in the Disney universe, will show up on all four of those services. So I buy a movie on Vudu, it shows up on iTunes, Google, and Amazon. If I buy a movie that's not from Disney on Vudu, it's part of the Ultraviolet system, probably, unless it's an indie house. All the other majors are part of Ultraviolet. That one's less compelling, but it's the same thing. I link my account to Ultraviolet, and any of those movies will show up on Flickster and IMDb, Target. It's out of business, no. Not a lot of Ultraviolet providers out there, but you get the idea. Like, there might eventually be more Ultraviolet providers. It'd be amazing if iTunes, Google, and Amazon came on board as Ultraviolet, because then all my Vudu stuff would be available on those services as well. So it isn't perfect. It doesn't put every movie every single place, but it is the only one that's a member of both.
Right on. So next up, we got this fascinating
first you want me to summarize this one?
Yeah, well, I mean, you can walk us through it. I don't mind taking the time to actually read the whole thing because it's something that we don't often get a window into. Oh, you're shaking your head. You say summarize.
This thing is ridiculously long. We'll be here all night.
All right, go ahead.
But he gave us a TLDR, so this is kind of cool. This is from Chance, who a few episodes ago noticed that we mentioned Amazon Video Direct, which gives independent producers the opportunity to show their videos on Amazon Prime. And he recently got his first movie listed on Prime and thought you might be interested in the process. If you want to see the results, we've got a link to Hide and Creep by Kyle Holman, which is now on Amazon Video. He uploaded it there, or you can just search Amazon for Hide and Creep. But here's the basic requirements, and he goes into way more detail if you're interested, and we'll put that in our show notes. You have to have a subtitle file, which he recommends check out rev.com. They'll subtitle an hour-long video for $60. That may be too much for somebody who does like a daily tech news show, but if you're just doing one movie and you hope to sell a few of them, that's totally worth it. You have to have your video file be at least 720p and high definition. Your trailer is recommended, although it's not required. However, if you do give them one, that also has to be HD. Key art includes an image file, basically your movie poster, and it must include the movie title in the image. Size is 1200 by 1600 pixels. And then your turnaround time. He says it was a little over a week for me. I'm guessing 3 or 4 days for most submissions.
You know, you realize all this makes me want to do is come up with the Cordkillers movie. I just want to make a movie. It doesn't matter how bad it is.
Oh my God, we should. Well,
can we make a movie?
Yes,
like
absolutely.
That would be amazing. All right.
I will come out to Austin to shoot on location if we need to. Like, we should do an LA shoot too, though.
So
actually, no, we're definitely not going to do a taxable LA shoot.
Oh, wait, yeah. You hear that? The state of California?
State of California. No, we should. I think my business license to do this covers that.
Okay,
so
okay.
whatever.
What if we did this as a side project? This could be an intellectual adventure that we go on. Just a proof of concept to show that two people with no experience whatsoever can make a movie. And it doesn't matter how good or bad the movie is. We can go through the process so we can report on how the cord cutting revolution is making this art possible.
Yeah. No, I'm so in.
So Crouch in the chat is suggesting Murderito, the never-ending chat realm novel, could be made into a movie. That'd be great.
An adaptation. Interesting.
Oh my gosh!
I wonder if we can get the rights.
Trust me, I know a guy.
Yeah, I'm sure you do. Well, that is it for this episode of Cordkillers. Thank you all for watching. Our website is cordkillers.com. Our email address is cordkillers@gmail.com. We're live on diamondclub.tv Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. Go forth and watch what you want, where you want, when you want, however you want.
Hey guys, Tom and Brian here. We just wanted to say thank you to all of our $5 patrons who keep us loud, live, and independent. You guys make Cordkillers the production that it is.
Your name appears in the video credits and appears in our hearts. And if you'd like to become one of them or see who they are, you can go to patreon.com/Cordkillers.
You'll need to do more than just go there, though. You'll have to sign up and, pledge an amount. But
unless you just want to see who they are.
Well, I mean, you could gawk. That's a little creepy, isn't it?
If you want to be a gawker,
let's go.
It's up to you.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.